these statements is not ambiguous to the Israeli soldiers on the ground. Indeed, it is directing their actions and objectives. On 7 December 2023, Israeli soldiers proved that they understood the Prime Minister's message to remember what the Amalek has done to you as genocidal. They were recorded by journalists dancing and singing. We know our motto, there are no uninvolved, that they obey one commandment to wipe off
this has been
the
filed by the
seed of
university
Amalek.
itself.
The Prime Minister's invocation of Amalek is being
from
used
19,
by
this is
soldiers
the
to
quote,
justify
the actual composition
the killing
of the court
civilians, including children.
551, yes, Lord.
These are the soldiers repeating the inciting words of their Prime Minister.
Different appointees, how the people in the court are appointed, different provisions on the left-hand side. And then said from year to year how many Muslims and non-Muslims were. M and NM is the indicator of Muslims and non-Muslims. It was 1983, your Lordship will have at the bottom straight away. Total. I just want to show the total. Plus 165.7. This is the court. This is the supreme body as even Basha recognized. This is 81 on that. 152.7, 152.11, 95.15, 137.15. Because this ends, the latest 223 your Lordships will get, 2023, at page 557. At the bottom is total. Again, 2018 is 147, 15, 129, 20, 75, 15. That is still 82%. So, Mullah, at no point in time for the last 40 years, the court has had less than 80% Muslims, de facto control, despite the legal regime, whatever
in
it may
Gaza
be.
were filmed dancing, chanting, and singing
So why
in
do I
November.
need to change the legal regime and aggressively prevent when all my feeding bodies to the court
there is now a trend among the soldiers to film
change,
themselves committing atrocities
against
civilians in Gaza in a form of snuff video. One recorded himself detonating over 50 houses
this is the
in
status for 104 years, undisputed.
Other soldiers were recorded singing, "We will destroy all
now,
of
my
Khan
lords,
Yunus
kindly have page
and this house.
558, which is
We will
EC,
blow it up for you and for everything you do for us." These are the soldiers putting into effect their command.
שכונת סג'אי הזל, נחל עוז,
558.
בעזרת השם יהיה לכם.
Next page, 558. This is the EC composition from 83 onwards for the last 40 years. At the bottom, your Lordships will see M16, NM code, 16.4, 15.4, 22.5, 17.4. 80 to 95% is the range. Your Lordships will just kindly have 564 for a moment. 563 first for a moment. Page 563 at the bottom. In years 2015 and 16, 21-0. 27-0, 27 Muslims know this thing. That's not something to take pride of, but the point I'm saying is that by and large, 80 to 100% EC, which is the primary executive body, is in
the commanders of the army
of the minority.
Are also of the same mind. Israeli army commander
Executive Council
Yair Ben David has stated that the army had done in Beit Hanun.
And this is with a completely secular regime, which doesn't positively say, oh, so and so,
and that the entire Gaza should resemble Beit Hanun. Israeli soldier
now the Academic Council, which is the third body,
published a video against the backdrop of the ruins of what was the site
now
of
the third body, which is the
University,
Academic Council,
with the caption,
and that your Lordships will find.
Once upon a time, there was a university in Gaza,
page 565,
and in practice, a school for murderers and human animals. Soldiers obviously believe that this language and their actions are acceptable because the destruction of Palestinian life in Gaza is articulated state policy. Senior political and military officials encouraged without censure the 95-year-old Israeli army reservist Ezra Yachin, a veteran of the Deir Yassin massacre against the Palestinians in 1948, to speak to the soldiers ahead of the ground invasion in Gaza. In his tour,
136.7 as of today.
echoed the same sentiment while
Academic
being
term.
driven around in an official
And the reason for
Israeli
this
army
is this:
vehicle,
the way the
dressed
EC,
in
AC,
Israeli army
etc.
fatigue. I quote,
the feeder mechanisms for
"Be
this
triumphant
are
and
in
finish them
effect
off,
old boys societies,
and don't leave
alumni
anyone
societies,
behind.
other
Erase the memory of them.
etc. So it's
Erase
in
them,
short.
their
So
families,
the
mothers,
fact that
and children.
I positively,
These animals
aggressively
can no
do
longer
not
live.
discriminate in
If you have
my
an Arab
statute
neighbor,
against others,
don't wait, go to his home
immaterial.
and shoot him.
Because with that
We
legal
want to
regime,
invade,
I am
not like
ensured a de
before.
facto control.
We want to
There is
enter
no
and
threat
destroy
today
what's
with
in
the
front of
existing
us,
legal regime
and
of
destroy
losing
houses,
the de facto
then destroy the one after it. With all of our forces, complete destruction, enter and
The thing
destroy.
which will be problematic,
As you can
like I
see,
said, if the
we
parliament
will
says
witness
you
things
can't in
we've
your
never
EC have more than
dreamed
20%
of.
Muslims, then I'll challenge it. But a
let
secular regime doesn't
them
impact.
drop bombs on them and erase them.
No, that mixes up
As
secularism
recently
and
as
right
7
under
January
Article 13.
2024,
That actually
a video of
blends
a
in
soldier was
very
posted
well with the
online
scheme of the
where he
Constitution
boasts
as to what's the
that
meaning
the
of.
army had
I don't need
destroyed
to
the
aggressively
entire
remove
village
others in my
of
document to
Hibat
show that, oh, I'm minority.
Gaza.
Only if I positively
For
exclude
2 weeks, he
aggressively.
said, they had
Everybody
worked
else.
hard to bomb the village and executed their mandate. Any suggestion that senior politicians did not mean what they said, much less
Once I'm
that the
established-
meaning was not understood by soldiers in Gaza,
Unless
would be without
I,
any
who have a
merit.
right to then administer, feel
The
threatened by any
scale of
provision,
destruction in Gaza, the mass targeting of family homes and
continue to
civilians,
administer the
the war being a war on
Lordships
children,
will not just check
all
provisions
make clear
therefore and say, oh, because
that
of this, you
genocidal
are excluded,
intent
therefore.
is both understood and is being put into practice. The articulated
65
intent is the destruction of
really,
Palestinian life
51 people
in all
challenged when quote,
its
all Muslim court was
manifestations.
changed to a
The
secular
genocidal
provision.
rhetoric is also commonplace
But Basha
within
itself
the
recognizes
Israeli
that on
Knesset.
the ground, nothing changed.
Members
Because of
of
this
the
mechanism.
My question is not that.
Because Really speaking, today I'm speaking
have
for the petitioner. I
repeatedly
can't of course
called
speak for
for
everybody.
Gaza
I'm
to be
speaking for the
wiped
petitioner
out,
I represent. I'm not
flattened, erased, and crushed on all its
I'm not
inhabitants.
And Malaz, the
They
present
have
dispute arises
deplored
just
anyone
one detour, Malaz.
feeling sorry
Present
for the
dispute arises in the
uninvolved
context of
Gazans,
reservations.
asserting repeatedly
Malaz,
that there are
that's
no
the next
uninvolved,
data. I'll just quickly
that
put
there
it
are
and then
no
that
is
innocents
a
in
separate
Gaza,
question
that the
altogether.
killings
Malaz,
of the women and
but how
children
does
should
Malaz,
not be
this has come to
separated from
lordship?
the citizens of
But
Gaza,
this dispute
and
arose in
that the children of
2005.
Gaza have brought this upon themselves.
No, not just. I'm not
There
flagging
should
something. I'm
be
not at all going
one
to address it on
sentence
merit.
for
Not at all.
everyone there.
Just flagging one point.
Death.
The present dispute only
Finally,
arises not
the
because of any
lawmakers have
provisions really in
called
there.
for mercilessly
50%
bombing
reservation
from
was
the
given,
air,
and only reason to give
with
that
some
was
advocating
in the
for the
professional
use of
school,
nuclear
Jawaharlal Nehru Medical
doomsday
College, a very
weapons,
sought after college.
and
The
a
distribution,
Nakba that will
for instance, is almost
overshadow
50-50
the Nakba
between
of
Muslim
48.
communities. Sometimes it can be 45 also, Muslims go to 45.
The Prime
sometimes.
Minister's
So there the idea
genocidal
was to
speech
protect that
has
250.
gained
Otherwise, in
ground
the rest of the
among some
university,
elements of civil
I have the data
society.
here, 70 to
A famous
80%
singer has
student
repeated
body.
Mr. Netanyahu's Amalek reference,
The
stating
need
that
for reservation,
Gaza
that's how the
must be
present
wiped
dispute arises.
out
Only in the
and be
context of
destroyed
professional, highly
with every
competitive
Amalek
spaces,
seat.
medical and engineering
We
colleges,
simply
no,
must
anywhere is
destroy
highly
all of
competitive.
Gaza and
That's the
exterminate
space where there was
everyone who
basically
is
reservation
there.
was brought in. Otherwise, reservation is not
Another
even
has
needed.
called to
Because 70
erase
to 80% of the
Gaza,
student
not
body is
leave a
anyway
single
Muslim.
person
You
there.
have St. Stephen's
Journalists
College, you
and
have
commentators have
AMFI,
announced that the
Xavier
woman
in between.
is an enemy,
Don't go on that.
the
If you
baby
go on
is
that,
an
you have
enemy,
Well, that
the
test
pregnant woman
in
is an
Stephen would
enemy.
have come to my rescue even if
That
I was
it is
not in this
necessary
position.
to
All
turn
I'm
the
saying, I
strip
don't even need
into a
that test
slaughterhouse,
necessarily. Is my submission to you.
to demolish every
Given my
house
situation.
our
Of course, if I was
soldiers
worse
come
off, the test would
across,
still help me, no doubt.
exterminate
But
everyone.
just, if the Lordship will permit, one page if I can hand over, if Lordship will permit.
The
Just
intentional failure of the government of Israel
of the composition of the
to
student
condemn, prevent, and punish such genocidal incitement constitutes in itself a grave violation of the Genocide Convention. We should recall, Madam President, that in Article
Plus
1
the total
of the
students
Convention,
today in the university
Israel
is
confirmed
23,675.
that genocide, whether
Out of that,
committed
the Muslim
in time
students
of peace
are
or in time of war,
18,700,
is a
which
crime
Malaz
under
comes to
international law.
percentage of Muslim students
And it undertook to
77.39%.
prevent and to punish it as such. This failure to
Percentage
prevent,
of Muslim female
condemn,
students
and
out of all
punish
the
such
women
speech
students,
by the government
81% are
has
Muslim.
served
Out
to
of the male
normalize
students,
genocidal
79%
rhetoric
are Muslim.
and extreme
And the
danger
overall
for
composition,
Palestinians within
77.3.
Israeli
That's how it is.
society. As MK Moshe Sada
So
from the
the
Likud
control
party
on
has
the
said,
administrative side is
the government's
substantial.
own attorneys
It's
share
catering to the
his
Muslim
views
community
that
in substance.
Palestinians in Gaza
It
must be
also takes
destroyed.
everybody else in
I quote,
alignment with the
"You
secular
go
ethos of
anywhere,
the Constitution without
and they tell
aggressively
you to
discriminating
destroy
against
them.
it. Can that be a point against
In
me
the
in a
kibbutz,
constitutional adjudication?
they continue to
that I
destroy
cease to
them.
be a minority?
My friends at the State Attorney's Office who fought with me on political issues in debate said to me, it is clear that we need to destroy all
my final
Gazans.
submission.
Destroy all Gazans. Israel is
This
aware of
university
its
has
destruction of Palestinian life and infrastructure.
A very important purpose of creating an
Despite this
educated
knowledge,
nation.
it has maintained
I literally created,
and
I
indeed
don't intend to
intensified
exaggerate, it actually has
its military
education
activity in
of
Gaza.
Muslims and AMU go hand in hand.
As to full awareness, in the week after
the
7
reason is
October, NGOs
The
and
minority
the
status
United
is very
Nations
relevant for them.
warned
Because
of an
it recognizes many judgments of the
unprecedented
law.
humanitarian crisis in Gaza.
But the point is this.
The UN stated that
Students
actors
from
must
Bengal,
allow
from
humanitarian
Karnataka,
teams
from Kerala,
and
from
goods
Muslim families
to
will send their
immediately and
children
safely
only
reach
to
the
AMU.
hundreds of
They may be
thousands
today,
of
they may
people
not 100
in
years back,
need.
they may not have been great universities, but
So
today they're
right from the
accepted universities
beginning,
all over the country.
Israel
Presidency College
knew
is there, Calcutta University
that it was
is there, South
depriving
Korea,
water,
but
food,
lot of that's the
electricity,
composition.
and
I could not
essentials
place it.
for
The
survival.
composition of AMU is from all
It
over
said
India.
so. Everything
Because
is
of its
closed.
minority status. Because that minority
It is known
identity
that
which
it
I
was
started my
depriving
submission with,
Palestinians of health
is
care
relevant
and
to a
treatment
minority.
for
That's why we
injury
have that
in the
argument.
middle of an unprecedented bombardment, of food and water, and of other essentials for survival.
And this is especially true for
This prompted
women's
the World
students,
Health
because
Organization
the
to
burden
say,
of bearing the
"We are
cultural
on our
markers
knees
of identity, be it a majority or be
asking
it a
for
minority, always
sustained,
comes on the women.
scaled-up, protected humanitarian operations, appealing
And when it comes to
all
girl
those in a
education,
situation to make a decision or influence decision makers to
existence
give
of
us
the
the
minority
humanitarian
status of
space
AMU is
to
very
address
relevant. It's
this
a very
human
important
catastrophe.
consideration in families
Despite this
sending
knowledge, Israel continues to target
women to this
infrastructure
institute.
essential for survival.
and possibly to
Water
access
and
higher
sanitation
education at
infrastructure,
all.
Solar panels,
If the institution
bakeries,
ceases to be a
mills,
Muslim minority
crops.
institution, it may
It
very well
bombs
hamper
hospitals.
the education of
decimating
Muslim
the
women in
healthcare
India,
system.
higher education of Muslim women.
It targets aid workers and the infrastructure of the United Nations. It is because of the policy of Israel that Gaza has become
Plus, de
a
facto,
place of death and despair. In conclusion, Madam President, many propagators of grave atrocities
plus de
have protested that they were misunderstood, that they did not mean what they said, and that their own words were taken out of context. What state would admit to a genocidal intent? Yet, the distinctive feature of this case has not been the silence as such, but the reiteration and the repetition of genocidal speech throughout every sphere of state in Israel. We remind the
81 amendment to the extent it sought to clarify the establishment and therefore the minority
of
state.
the
My submission wrongly, so it couldn't have done it,
inciters.
but that doesn't matter.
The Prime
There's
Minister,
always been a state. So really speaking,
the
today,
President,
because of the operation of the
the
status
Minister of
quo orders
Defense,
of your lordships
the Minister of
on the
National
81 amendment,
Security,
it continues to
the
be
Minister of
minority
Energy and
state. In
Infrastructure,
fact, if your lordships uphold
members
Basha,
of the Knesset,
for the first time clearly
senior army
now,
officials,
it will become a
and foot
non-minority
soldiers.
institution.
Genocidal utterances are therefore not out in the fringes. They are embodied
That's fair enough.
in state
My
policy.
submission is this, that a minority...
The intent to destroy is plainly understood by soldiers on the ground.
When you are interpreting
It is
established under
also
Article
fully
30, your lordship will
understood
take the
by
social
some within the
circumstances
Israeli
in
society,
some level of account.
with
Of
the
course, not
government
purely legal.
facing criticism for
If
allowing
something
in any
can
aid to
promote
Gaza
Muslim girl
on the
education
basis that it is
possibly and
recanting
ensure
on
the
its
minority
promise
status,
to
there's no
starve
harm in a
Palestinians.
secular...
Any suggestion that Israeli officials did not mean what they said, or
I'm
were
not
not
belittling
fully
anybody.
understood by
It's a
soldiers and
fact in the
civilians
community.
alike, to mean what they
It
said,
is a fact in the community.
should be
Your
rejected
lordships,
by this
I mean, these are
court.
sociological aspects.
The
So of course,
evidence
your
of
lordships will not make a judicial
genocidal
finding on
intent
it.
is not
But it's a
only
fact.
chilling,
That
it
community
is also
send their
overwhelming
children
and
generally and
incontrovertible.
women specifically.
Madam
because of the
President,
minority.
it is now
It's a
my
fact.
honor to request you to
Plus,
call
finally, so
Mr.
what I
John
would submit,
Dugard
just I want to
on the
read out
subject
three,
of jurisdiction.
I
thank Mr. Ngukai Toby, and I now invite Professor John Dugard to take the floor.
there is a very illustrious list of women, just want to place, women alumni of AMU. Plus, that is there in, if your lordships will have my written submission, para 24, this is volume 2B. Well, it's page 35, in red, page 35, running page
Madam
35.
President, distinguished members of the court,
1B, I'm
it
sorry,
is a
1B.
great
My apologies.
privilege
1B.
to appear before you today on
1B,
behalf
page
of the
35.
Republic of South Africa. In my speech, I will address the question of jurisdiction.
Para 24. In 1937, the
people
school was
of South
upgraded
Africa
to AMU Women's College.
and of
Notably, the
Israel
AMU's Women's College was established
both
at a
have a
time when the
history of
literacy rate
suffering.
among Indian women was just 3%,
states
and
have
almost 2
become
decades before
parties to the
premier women
Genocide
colleges such as
Convention
LSR came into
in the
existence.
determination
In this manner,
to
AMU
end
became a
suffering.
catalyst for empowering Muslim women,
In
breaking
this
societal
spirit,
norms and contributing to the
neither has
broader movement
attached
for
a
women's right and
reservation
education
to
in India
Article
during the
9
early 20th
of the
century.
Convention
The university's
on the
commitment to
Prevention
gender
and
equality and
Punishment
educational
of the
opportunity laid a
crime of
foundation for the
genocide.
advancement of women in various fields,
It is in
contributing to their
terms of this
socio-economic and intellectual
convention
upliftment.
dedicated
The
to
success of
saving
AMU is therefore
humanity
inseparable from the
that South
triumphs of
Africa
Muslim
brings
women in the
this
subcontinent
dispute
who have
before the court.
excelled across diverse fields. Among these are
The
trailblazers such as
prohibition
Rana Safvi, a distinguished
on
historian,
genocide is a
Ismat
peremptory
Chugtai,
law.
your Lordships are aware of Lihab,
Obligations under the
a
Genocide
renowned novelist,
Convention
Hashima
are
Hassan, a
erga
notable
omnes.
scientist at NASA, and renowned
Obligations owed
educationist
to the
Najma Akhtar.
international
These accomplished women
community
have
as a
made
whole.
significant contribution in areas such as law,
States parties
education,
to this
politics, literature, and
convention are
activism,
obliged not
underscoring
only
the
to
broad spectrum of
desist
talent that AMU has
from
fostered over the
genocidal
years.
acts,
In
but
fact, even the
also
first
to
chancellor of
prevent them.
AMU was a woman,
That the
Sultan Jahan
obligation of
Begum of
state
Bhopal.
parties
The appointment of a
to
woman
prevent
as
acts
the
of
inaugural
genocide
chancellor marked a
is the
significant historical
foundation of the
milestone.
convention
It was the first time
is
a woman
clear
served as the chancellor of
from
any
its
Indian university.
placement
So, Manoj, the
in
point I'm
Article
making
1
is
of
the
the
minority
convention.
status and the women education have gone somewhat
Article
together.
9 of the Genocide Convention
And it
makes
has
it
really
clear that
fostered
state parties
education
are
amongst
guardians
Muslims, in
of the
particular
Genocide
Muslim women,
Convention.
and that can be in fact.
Unlike other treaties
And
designed
Manoj,
to
finally,
protect
I'll
human
just
rights,
conclude my submissions
it does not oblige
with
states
something,
to
Manoj, I
pursue
saw in
negotiations
unions' written submissions
as a
by the relevant
prelude
solicitor.
to approaching this court.
Manoj, the broad
It
width
does
of
not
that submission is
treat the ending of
that you are such a
genocidal
great
acts
institution.
as a
You
bilateral
are so
affair
good, you are
between
excellent,
states.
you have faculties across the board.
Instead, it
How could you be
envisages a
minority?
situation in which a state,
No, it's not,
acting on
I'm
behalf of the
paraphrasing. I'm certainly
international
paraphrasing.
community as a
The
whole,
point is, it is an
seizes the
institution of
jurisdiction
national
of the court
importance. It is
as a
an
matter of
institution of national
urgency
importance.
to prevent
And
genocide.
a big institution. It's an institution of excellence.
South Africa has a
And
long
somewhat that
history
leads to the
of
fact that
close
you are not a
relations
minority.
with
Because my
Israel.
respectful submission is
For this reason,
that
it did not bring the dispute
AMU does
immediately to the attention of
what
the
Article
court.
30 requires of
It
minority
watched with
institutions
horror
exceptionally well.
As
That should
Israel
not be held
responded
against
to the terrible atrocities
The fact that
committed
I'm a
against its
successful
people
minority
on
institution
7th of October,
Cannot be the
with an
basis
attack on Gaza that
for making
resulted
me
in the
move
indiscriminate
out of that
killing
minority.
of
So this is
innocent
on the aspect.
Palestinian
Also on entry 63, final
civilians,
concluded.
most of whom were women and children.
Entry 63, national importance.
The
Institutes of
South
national
African
importance. Just on
government
that final submission.
repeatedly voiced
A
its
minority
concerns in the
institution
Security
can be an
Council
institute of national
and in
importance.
public
There's nothing.
statements
It's not as if
that
only the
Israel's
majorities can
actions had
establish
become genocidal.
institutes of national importance. Well, that's my final submission. I'm
On 2
extremely grateful.
November, in a formal diplomatic démarche, it informed Israel that while it condemned the actions of Hamas,
institution in the country,
it wanted the International Criminal Court to investigate the leadership
I
of
cannot
Israel
perfectly
for
answer that because I
international
don't have the
crimes,
data, but my understanding is that
including
most
genocide.
minority institutions, including
As the
Jamia
court
Millia
will know,
Islamia, for
the
instance,
definition of genocide in the
was
Rome Statute
100%, substantially,
repeats that
nearly
of
100
the
it would be, exact
Genocide
numbers I can't,
Convention.
but substantially funded even Jamia Millia Islamia in Delhi, which is
On
established under the
17
87 Act
October,
of Parliament.
South
Will
Africa
almost be nearly 100, I
referred
can't
Israel's
vouch for it
commission
exactly. I'm grateful.
of the crime of genocide to the International Criminal Court for, quote, vigorous investigation, unquote. In announcing this decision, President Ramaphosa publicly expressed his abhorrence for what is happening right now in Gaza,
One is
which is now turned into a concentration camp
Anjuman
where
Rahmania approached
genocide
your
is
lordship
taking
in
place.
1981, and how finally
To
that
accuse
petition
a
was
state
disposed of.
of
Despite
committing acts of genocide
on 26 November
and to condemn it
1981,
in such strong language is a major act
Honorable
on the
2
part
judges
of a
referring the
state.
matter to 7 judges.
At this stage, it
So,
became
first,
clear that there was a serious
Lordship may
dispute
have
between South Africa and
reference.
Israel, which would end only with the end of Israel's genocidal acts.
I need to read few lines of that reference because it is
South
important.
Africa repeated
Lordship
this
may have
accusation
3A
at the meeting of BRICS on 21 November.
209.
And at an
3A,
emergency
209.
special session of the United Nations General Assembly on
I have
12
placed that
December.
writ petition also on
No
record minute of
response
1981.
from Israel was
the
forthcoming.
circumstance due to which that,
None
that
was
petition came to
necessary.
be filed.
By this time,
3A 209,
the
which your
dispute
lordship
had
has.
crystallized as a
At
matter
the
of
bottom.
law. This was confirmed by
Your lordship has
Israel's
recorded.
official and unequivocal denial on 6 December that it was committing genocide in Gaza.
If your lordship gives me 15 minutes today, I'll be able to conclude. Otherwise, your
However,
lordship will
as a
give me
matter of
next day.
courtesy, before filing the present application,
Shamsad, we don't want to
on
rush you.
21
You take your
December,
10 minutes or
South
15
Africa
minutes
sent a
after
note
we come
verbal
back.
to the
Next week we are
Embassy
not
of Israel
I'm so
to
deeply-
reiterate
I'm
its
so
view that Israel's acts of
we'll be sitting on
genocide
the 23rd
in Gaza amounted
for
to
this matter.
genocide,
We'll give you,
that it as a
15
state
minutes, but keep
party
down.
to
I'll
the
not
Genocide
exceed 20
Convention
minutes, madam.
was under an obligation to prevent genocide
I'm so deep,
from
yeah.
being committed. Israel responded by way of a note verbal that failed to address
Touched by the
the
fact that you
issues
are
raised
rising,
by
so we'll
South
give you a little
Africa
time on
in its note, and neither affirmed nor denied the existence of a dispute. This was emailed later on the 27th of December. This note was received by the relevant South African team on the 29th of December after the present application was filed. On 4 January, South Africa replied to this note verbal, highlighting Israel's failure to prevent any response to the matters raised by South Africa over the previous months, as reiterated in its note verbal. South Africa made it clear that given Israel's ongoing conduct against Palestinians in Gaza, the dispute referred to in its note verbal of 21 December remained unresolved and was plainly not capable of resolution by way of a bilateral meeting. Nevertheless, South Africa proposed a meeting on 5 January, again out of courtesy. Israel responded to this note verbal by proposing that we reconnect to coordinate a meeting at the earliest opportunity after the close of hearings in the present case. To this, South Africa understandably replied that such a meeting would serve no purpose. Madam President, these notes verbal are all to be found in the judge's folder. The existence of a dispute is a matter to be determined by an objective determination of the facts as they existed at the time of the filing of the application. At this time, South Africa had already accused Israel in the Security Council, the General Assembly, and other public fora of engaging in genocidal acts. It had conducted a diplomatic démarche on Israel, warning it that it viewed its conduct as genocidal. It had requested the International Criminal Court to vigorously investigate crimes under the Genocide Convention committed by Israel in the Gaza Strip, and it accused Israel inter alia of the deliberate targeting of civilians, intentionally causing starvation and impeding relief supplies. It had accused Israeli leaders of expressing, quote, the intent of committing genocide. Israel had flatly denied South Africa's accusations. Despite these harsh accusations, Israel has persisted in its genocidal acts against the population of Gaza. What more evidence could be required to establish a dispute? It is precisely because of a situation of this kind, affecting the international community as a whole, that Article 9 of the Genocide Convention does not require negotiations as a precondition to seizing the jurisdiction of the court. Certainly, a respondent state cannot prevent a referral to the court by claiming that there is no dispute and that it wants discussions on this matter when the existence of the dispute is clear. For a state to insist on a time frame for negotiations would simply be a license to commit genocide and would run counter to the object and purpose of the Genocide Convention. Madam President, the question of the crystallization of a dispute has been addressed by this court in preliminary objections at the merits stage where the burden of proof is higher. Although the court has generally adopted a flexible approach to the subject, it has laid down a number of tests for the existence of a dispute. First, it must be shown that the claim of one party is positively opposed by the other. Second, the date for determining the existence of the dispute is the date of the application, but subsequent conduct may be considered. 3, whether the dispute exists must be determined by an objective determination of the facts. And 4, a dispute exists when it is demonstrated on the basis of the evidence that the respondent was aware or could not have been unaware that its views were positively opposed. When these propositions are applied to the facts of this case, it is incontrovertible that a dispute exists between South Africa and Israel. South Africa strongly believes that what Israel is doing in Gaza amounts to genocide. Israel denies this and claims that such an accusation is legally and factually wrong and, moreover, is obscene. So an objective determination of the facts shows that a dispute existed on the date of the submission of South Africa's application, and this has been confirmed by Israel's subsequent statements and by its continuing conduct in Gaza. Moreover, Israel must have been aware from South Africa's public statements, the démarche, and the referral of the matter to the International Criminal Court of Israel's genocidal acts that a dispute existed between the two states. Madam President, the court has indicated that in an application for provisional measures, it is sufficient to show that there is a prima facie basis for jurisdiction. It is submitted that South Africa has convincingly established the existence of a dispute between it and Israel over the fulfillment of the latter's obligations under the Genocide Convention. Finally, it is submitted that regard should be had to the special considerations that apply to the existence of a dispute under Article 9 of the Genocide Convention between a state that brings an application in furtherance of its obligation to prevent genocide and a state accused of committing genocide. This concludes my speech, Madam President. I thank you, the members of the court, for your attention. I now ask you to call to the podium Professor Max du Plessis to address you on the nature of the rights requiring protection and the link between such rights and the measures requested. Thank you.
I thank you, Professor Dugard. Before I give the floor to the next speaker, the court will observe a coffee break of 10 minutes. Sitting is adjourned.